Hey gang, Joe by Platt. Today we're continuing on our wine series. We're actually going to start another sub-series in that. I'm going to do next few videos are going to be over fortified wines that have additional distilled spirit added to it. The first one we're going to talk about today is Vermouth. Vermouth is an aromatized, fortified wine that is flavored with herbs, spices, roots, etc. Also has distilled spirit added to it. That's why this is something you wouldn't find in like the wine section in your grocery store, something you would find in your liquor store. And that's because, again, there's distilled spirit in there. Wines infused with herbs and roots, however, have been around for a long time. They found evidence dating back to around 1250 BC in China of these flavored wines. Around the same time in India, there was production of a wormwood-based wine or flavored wine. Wormwood is a spice. Originally, these wines were produced for medicinal purposes. People used roots, herbs, whatever, for medical practices, and they took it just the next step. Hey, let's add to some wine. That'll be even better. The term vermouth itself is a French variation of a German word, Vermouth, which is their term for wormwood, the spice. The Italians, even though the Germans and French had made a variation of a wormwood-based wine, it was the Italians that kind of took off with this, especially in the 1700s. And their variation became real popular with the English, who used the French term vermouth. And so these wormwood-based wines became just known as vermouth all over. After a while in Italy, two styles began to develop. One, a pale, dry, bitter style, and the other one, a darker or a red, sweet style. The first version of the sweet style that's been known to be produced by a gentleman named Antonio Carpana. You might know the name, might not. In 1786 in Turin, Italy. Turin, Italy actually became kind of the hotspot for the vermouth industry. It's where the wine became something less of a medicinal and more of a beverage thing. Throughout the years, vermouth went from a medicinal drink, then to an aperitif. It was popular in the cafes in Turin, and then eventually in the 1800s, especially late 1800s, became used widely in the cocktail culture, in the world of cocktails. Drinks like the Martini, the Manhattan, the Rob Roy, the Negroni, just to name a few, used vermouth in those cocktails. Over the years, however, especially in the late 1800s, the wormwood itself became less of a player in vermouth. And the reason that is because in the late 1800s, absinthe became popular, and wormwood is a big component in absinthe. However, at the time, rumors and stories came out that it was causing hallucinations, driving people crazy, and that it needed to be banned. Absinthe was banned for a long time. Here in the U.S., it was banned. And it was because that wormwood in the absinthe was causing hallucination. So the vermouth producers had to shift gears and kind of change the blend of the herbs, spices, whatever that went in there. Also, coming out of the 1800s and the 1900s, taste had changed. A lot of these cocktails, especially the Martini, was originally had more vermouth in it than it had gin. Over the years, that ratio kind of flipped, and a lot of the drinks, vermouths, became less and less of a factor in the drink, and the spirits itself became bigger. So vermouth, again, use just kind of went down. How it's produced is they start off with a low alcohol white wine that either they leave kind of dry, or they can add caramel coloring, caramelized sugars in it. That'll turn it red and also add additional sweetness. Then after that, the spices are added: clove, cinnamon, citrus peels, cardamom, etc. Sweet vermouth is roughly 10 to 15% sugar, where dry vermouth is less than 4% sugar, so that's the difference on the sweetness. There's a couple of variations or products out there that are kind of variations on vermouth. There's Lillet or Lillet Blonde, which is similar to a dry vermouth. And then there's Dubonnet, which is similar to a sweet red vermouth. As far as the major brands of vermouth, we have Carpana, which is named after the gentleman that created sweet vermouth, and they make an excellent sweet vermouth. Cinzano, Martini, and Rossi, those are the big Italian producers. And the major French producer is Noilly Prat. Now, a vast majority of the world's vermouth production comes from either France or Italy. There is some produced in Australia, some produced in the UK, and here in the US. But most of what you're going to find is either from France or Italy. The particular one I'm going to try today is the Martini and Rossi Rossa. It is their sweet vermouth. Comes in at 15% alcohol by volume. They also produce a dry vermouth and something referred to as a Bianco, which is a white or light color, one that has additional sweetness. It's similar color-wise to a dry, but it has a little more sweetness. They also have a line of sparkling wines. In an earlier video, I tried the Asti. They also have a Prosecco, a Rosé, and they also have a bitter liqueur. Their kind of take on like Campari, for lack of a better comparison. So let's give this one a try. Yeah, just looking at this is kind of brown in color, kind of a almost cola-like in color. Boy, I get kind of a heavy nose. You can smell the sweetness. You can almost smell the viscosity, the thickness that you get from additional sugars on liquid. Let's give her a try. Sweet. It's sweet. I get a little earthiness. I get hint of, I want to say hint of pepper, but I'm not sure that's a totally accurate deal, but a little bit of that pepper back in, a lot of brown notes, a lot of maybe a little clove, but not a bad little drink. Here in the U.S., we wouldn't consume vermouth like this. Again, this would be part of a cocktail, but in Europe, they would drink vermouth like this, or maybe over the rocks. A dry vermouth on the rocks is fairly popular. If you're a young bartender, I might give you this little bit of advice. You might have some Europeans ask for Martini, and a lot of times what they're asking for is the Martini vermouth and not the Martini cocktail, just in case you ever get that confusion. This is not bad. Viscosity-wise, it reminds me also of port, but I don't think I'd ever drink it like a port. But I definitely know that it goes good with some bourbon, which I might have to throw it in too. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video. It lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section. Or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.